Hi there, this is Ruben from Dutch Round 1. Thanks again for coming by. Thanks for watching another episode. As always, I appreciate your time and I appreciate your support. Today, what are we going to do? Well, we'll take a look at 10 English words which are actually Dutch. But before we do that, remember to give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you want more content, and let me know in the comments if this was useful for you or not. But without much further ado, let's go straight for our vocabulary lesson. Alright, so basically before we start, I'd like to say that languages are constantly evolving and that Dutch and English have many influences from different languages. So I'm not here to claim those words, but according to the experts of etymology, these English words do have some Dutch origin, and I thought it was quite fun to maybe show you 10 words which actually have a Dutch origin. I will start off with to bluff. Bluffen in Dutch, it's basically to boast and to brag. It's used a lot in poker games also, and that basically comes from Middle Dutch, right? Middle Dutch, you have to see like 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th and 18th century Dutch, so the earliest forms of the Dutch language, and it meant exactly the same, all right? So this word, if you look at what the experts say, they saw it appear for, let's say, the first time in the 16th and 17th century. So to bluff, bluffen, basically to boast or to brag. Alright, so we go to the next one, and the next one is the BUOY. The BUOY, as I've been looking in to these kind of words, I see that many of the words, I haven't chosen all of them, I've chosen 10, actually had to do with navigating, because the Dutch 17th century were navigating the 7 seas, navigating the oceans. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of words which have something to do with the ocean, the sea, navigating, and so on. So the next one is the boy, the boei in Dutch, again 17th century, that's what the experts say, and it meant exactly the same. The boy and the boei are perfect translations for one another, and it was written differently before in Dutch. It was written B-O-Y-E, now with time it became B-O-E-I. Alright, so the boei is the boy. We go to the next one, and the next one is quite a funny one, but before we do that, if you appreciate these videos, if you want to buy me a coffee to keep me fresh and to make more videos for you, go to my description, click on the buy me a coffee link, and if you want to buy me a coffee, I'd greatly appreciate that. Alright, let's continue with the coleslaw. The coleslaw. Alright, so the origins are Dutch, as it was a recipe which was prepared in the Netherlands, and by the end of the 18th century, as some of the Dutch went to the United States, they started making this recipe, they started making this meal. If you translate it literally, kool would be cabbage and then sla would be salad, so the cabbage salad became the coleslaw in English, right? So that's the origins of the coleslaw in the English language. We continue, and then we have the easel. The easel, that would be the ezel or the schildersezel. So it can have two translations in Dutch. It can be a donkey, or it can also be a painter's easel, where he's making his or her paintings. Alright, so again, Middle Dutch, 17th century, and it also some origins are basically, if you go further, we have to go to Latin, and Latin you had the word asinus, and asinus also meant ezel, donkey. Alright, so this one is the ezel in Dutch. We continue with the next one. The next one is pretty logic, and that would be the iceberg, the ICEBERG. So ICE in Dutch is ice, and berg in English would be mountain. So it also goes back to the Middle Dutch of the 17th century, and basically, first of all, the meaning was when people were navigating, they would see a glacier from far away, they would call it an iceberg, and then later 50-60 years onwards it changed, and then it became a huge mass of floating ice in the ocean, right? So iceberg, the ICEBERG, that's the origin, and that's why it has a little bit of a Dutch influence in the English language. Alright, then we go to the next one. The rucksack is de rugzak, pretty logic. Rug is your back, and then zak could be a sack, and it can also be a bag. So that's pretty logic. We have to go back to Middle Dutch again, although this one is not 100% settled, because if you look at some experts, they will say it's got Dutch origins, other ones will say it has German origins. So the debate is open there, but I thought it was a nice word to put in the 10 Dutch words in the English language. All right, and then we have an interesting one, maybe a funny one, Santa Claus. Santa Claus actually comes from the Dutch language, from the Dutch tradition, Sinterklaas. And this is not only a tradition in the Netherlands, but it's also a tradition in Belgium. All right, so even me, when I was a small kid, on the night of the 5th of December, I would put my shoes in front of the chimney or in the living room, and then basically we put in some carrots in the shoes. Why would we do that? Well, basically Sinterklaas was a saint bringing gifts to the children on the 6th of December, and he had a horse, so we wanted to give some food for the horse. We would go to bed, and then basically the morning after we would wake up, we would have plenty of gifts, chocolate and sweets. So basically that's the tradition, which is actually quite big still in the Netherlands and also in Belgium. All right, so how did that word come to the United States? Well, basically, again, the end of the 18th century, there were some Dutch people actually celebrating the name day of Sinterklaas, Saint Nicholas in English. And basically, it was written in the newspaper as, you know, an interesting way of celebration. And then basically, it became part of the broader culture, and that's how Sinterklaas, Saint Nicholas, became Santa Claus. Right, we go to the next one, and again we go to the navigating world, the ocean world, the vocabulary of the seas, and that would be the skipper. De schipper in Dutch, as you can see, writing-wise, pronunciation-wise, it's quite close, and it's still a captain. We have to go back to the 18th century for our first notions of this word. And the skipper was still a captain, master of a boat, literally. And these are the origins of the word de schipper, de skipper. All right. We continue with the next one, and that would be the yacht, of the yacht in Dutch. Written the same way, however the pronunciation is a little bit different. And this one is actually quite early. I mean, when I checked it out, it's basically 15th, 16th century. And again, the Dutch were navigating the seas, and the yacht was actually, or were actually, the faster ships in a war fleet. So they're quite small, fast, movable ships. And then there was also a second meaning. The yacht also meant a kind of a hunt, a pursuit. And we still have that word in Dutch, we just write it differently. Instead of a Y at the beginning, we write a J. The yacht still means the hunt, the pursuit. All right, so these are the origins of the English word, the yacht. And then we continue with the last one, and the last one is the ice skate, and in Dutch we say de schaats. Alright, so basically the Dutch are quite famous for ice skating. They're also quite good at the Olympics and the World Championships. They always win plenty of gold medals. Also, they have this 11 cities skating trip every year if there's enough ice on the rivers. So they have a ice skating culture. So basically, where does that word come from? Well, basically we have to go back to the 17th century. There were some English people who were exiled in the Netherlands. I mean, they took refuge there because they supported Charles II, and then basically they speak about something which is the Great Restoration, and it basically meant that these people who were exiled could go back to England, and then basically they adapted this word, and then they turned de schaats into the skate or the ice skate. Alright, so these were the 10 Dutch words in the English language. I hope you found it useful. I hope you find it interesting. I hope you like the history of this kind of vocabulary. I want to thank you again for watching. Give it a like if you like this content. Subscribe to the channel if you want more, and let me know in the comments if this is useful for you or not. I want to thank you again for watching, and I want to wish you a great rest of the day. Stay tuned for another episode of Dutch Round 1. Ciao.